Electric Cafe.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Electric Cafe. Today's album, or today's video, is an album review on Typo Negative's album called October Rust. It's my friend Steve. Or do you go Steven? Steven? Steve. Steve is my neighbor upstairs in my complex, and we share a love for buying records and music and get together occasionally and play some music and just talk about the music industry and everything from collecting and reissues to types of music. And we kind of bond on similar music, but it's interesting because, we're about, what, 18 years apart?
Something like that.
I'm 48 years.
I'm 30.
Okay. We're basically about a high schooler apart from each other, like a senior apart. He's 30, I'm 48, and he likes a lot of death metal and heavy metal, or death metal and
Death metal, heavy metal, yeah.
speed metal too. Is it just
Not as much, mainly like
what's the black metal? Black metal.
Black metal's, I
No.
wouldn't say I'm huge into it. Black
Okay.
metal's like that crazy church burning Norway stuff.
Okay, so death metal, punk,
A lot of hardcore,
a lot of hardcore, gothic rock,
Yeah.
like which this is.
like goth punk, stuff like that.
Cool. So we kind of blend on some genres in there. I like a little bit of goth rock, and I'm a little bit more on the electronic side, and so we just thought it would be kind of interesting to. He thought based on our his taste and my taste that I might be interested in hearing this. So we're gonna listen to it. I'm gonna hear it for the first time, and then we're both gonna review it and give each song a score and then an overall of the score. But we just we're hanging out having a beer and. We just got back from the record store, and Steve wanted to show a few records that he got today. Unfortunately, I didn't find anything, but I did get a chance to buy some stickers and a couple posters. Then I got a Bauhaus T-shirt. So, what'd you get, Steve?
Spent way too much money is what I got.
You spent.
I got In Flames debut. It's a repress, but apparently this sounds really good, so I'm stoked on that. They're like Swedish death metal from the early 90s.
Oh shit!
Yeah.
What year is that record?
I think it's 92. I could be wrong on that, but it's very early 90s.
It's a cool cover.
Yeah, this is, I really don't think it'd be up your alley, but I really like this album.
It's strange because you said they had the old artist name logo.
The old logo, yeah.
But then the bottom is kind of a different font. It looks kind of funny.
So, yeah.
Why is that?
I'll move on to the next album.
You're like, oh, what the...
No, so I also got this one. This is, I believe, their second or third. I forget exactly, but I also really like this album. They kind of changed their debut and their next album were like full-blown, straight-up Swedish death metal, like, Boss HM2 guitar pedals, like chainsaw guitar tones, stuff like that. And then they went like, more melodic death metal with these albums. I guess they changed their logo, like you were saying, to reflect, going a little more melodic. It's not quite as straight up death metal in your face. Like, it's still death metal, but it's a lot more melodic. They still scream and everything like that, but there's a lot more melody in the guitar playing, and it's a little less aggressive than their first couple albums. So
cool, nice. Now, when you buy your vinyl, do you try to keep those stickers on there when you buy it?
I usually just slit it down the middle like this and keep the shrink wrap on it.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a free sleeve, keeps fingerprints and stuff.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if you were like super hardcore with, how some people are about like the stickers and price tags.
I don't care about the hype stickers that much, but I generally do try to keep the shrink on because, keeps fingerprints off of it and things of that nature. Yeah. And you don't have to buy like a poly sleeve for the outside. I mean, you could, but that's how I handle it.
Like, I would think that, like, for me, from a kind of an outsider of, I know somewhat about black metal and death metal, but not too much, but I would think that was for sure, like a metal album cover for sure. But the other one is interesting to me. I like the other one a little bit more, as far as the artwork. I think that's kind of cool, but I can see how, do you like this one more than that one, or do you have a preference?
I don't really have a preference, but that one's definitely way heavier. Like, it's way more like...
As far as the artwork.
Oh, as far as the artwork, I kind of like this one.
You kind of like that one.
Yeah.
That's what I was wondering, because they're very different.
Yeah. They kind of changed a lot as a band when this album came out, and the one prior to this as well. They went, like, in a more melodic direction.
Because that one reminds me a lot of, like, a Megadeth record cover.
Yeah.
A little bit.
I'd say it's definitely a lot heavier than Megadeth, but, like, there's a lot of...
It's just not the artwork, though.
Oh, yeah.
Just a little bit. Cool. What else you got?
I got a repress of Dinosaur Jr.'s debut. I really like this album. I was in a punk band a while ago, and we used to cover a lot of these songs, and I used to have this many moons ago, and then I sold it and regretted it ever since, and this was priced very fairly, so I picked it up.
Cool. How much was that? 22?
Yeah, it wasn't much at all. I think it was like 24. That's not bad.
And that's like 86, 87 when they first came out?
I believe this came out in 85. This was their
85?
debut. Yeah.
What label were they on originally?
SST originally.
That sounds familiar. Do they have some other people then? Yeah.
SST was like Greg Ginn from Black Flag's label.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. They had like St. Vitus, like a lot of dual.
K-I-H-N? Or is it?
Mm.
How do you think you spell his last name?
Oh, Greg Ginn?
Yeah, oh, G.
Yeah.
Was he like a mastering engineer or a producer or anything like that too?
I think he did do some of that. He was the guitarist for Black Flag. But he had a lot of involvement with like SST records and stuff like that.
The name sounds really familiar.
Yeah, I'm not sure if he mastered. He might have. I would assume so. He was like the mastermind behind that whole record label, so maybe.
Interesting. Okay, cool.
But yeah, this stuff's really good. It's kind of like heavier indie rock. It's pretty good.
Now, in your opinion, from what I know about Dinosaur Jr., this is almost like I wouldn't say it's like skate punk.
Oh, not at all.
At all,
No.
yeah. But it's not towards grunge, which came out a couple years after.
This was more like aggressive indie rock. Like it's got some punk, roots in it. You can definitely hear like it's got like the punk aggression.
Do you like Mudhoney?
Yeah.
Where would you say that difference is? Like
closer to punk than Mudhoney's early stuff.
Okay.
But definitely not like full blown punk. Like it's still indie rock. It's just slightly aggressive.
I'm just trying to think of like 85 to 87. Like, that's Mudhoney is very well respected.
Oh yeah.
Early band, and
they're
Dinosaur Jr. is very respected.
At least this album is a little more aggressive than Mudhoney's early stuff.
Okay.
Mudhoney was way closer to grunge than these guys were.
Yeah.
But then, a couple albums later, Dinosaur Jr. did get very mellow and like closer to grunge. But
who would you compare them to in that period? Is there anybody in the middle 80s?
that's a good question.
Yeah, they always seem like an outlier. I wouldn't,
Yeah, they're very unique.
because I don't want to compare them like Sonic Youth or anything that's
Nothing
in
like that.
Seattle.
Yeah, they were. That's a good question. I mean, I can't think of anyone off the top of my head. They're very unique. They're like an outlier.
Cool. Yeah, I've heard some of their cover songs. There's good cover songs.
Yeah, Jay Mascis, the guitarist and the frontman too. He's like a brilliant guitarist. Like some of the stuff that he writes is just it blows my mind.
Yeah,
Like,
I saw them open up for The Cure in '92,
oh, cool.
and I was like, wow. I was like, because I had heard of them.
Yeah.
But then I was like, wow, if The Cure really likes them, then that's really respectful because I know it's not super different from The Cure, but at the time it was kind of like worlds apart, even though it wasn't.
If it was 92, I didn't exist back then, but I'm pretty sure you saw basically the second iteration of the band. They were originally a three-piece. You can see them all in the back here with Lou Barlow and Murph was the drummer. And they kind of, I don't really know what happened, but they had some sort of falling out, or like early 90s, late 80s after their Bug album. And Jay Mascis basically just carried on with session musicians throughout the 90s. And I mean, that stuff's really good too. But...
Yeah, it seemed like they never got the push. And it was probably because there was internal issues. Because it never seemed like they got the push that a lot of... Like in 92, 93, like as grunge got popular in 91, they were looking for so many bands in MTV to like push that were in this vein. But Dinosaur, like you hear like the Breeders and, all kinds of bands that were sort of, Veruca Salt, all these bands that were sort of indie,
right.
British or American, they were just really trying to push. And they never really pushed any Dinosaur Jr. I think there was only like one video that they showed.
I think it's because like 1990-ish on, it was basically the Jay Mascis band. It was, they just continued on with him being the front man. The other two original founding members got the boot for whatever reason, and they kind of carried on that way throughout the 90s for most of the 90s. I mean, those albums are great, don't get me wrong, I love those albums.
Yeah.
But the first three albums with the original lineup, it doesn't even hold a candle to the 90s stuff.
Yeah, do you think, like a lot of bands like in the 80s, especially there were so many underground labels through the middle to late 80s, were they ever like swooned to a bigger label and it just didn't work out?
So that's actually what happened when all the session musicians started. Their first three albums, as far as I understand it, were on SST Records, which was like an underground indie-ish label,
Yeah.
like punk rock, like stuff like that. Not a major label by any means. It was like an independent. And then I guess I don't know the reasoning behind it. I don't know that much about exactly what happened, but
Yeah.
basically he started the J Mascis band, kicked the other two guys out, or they left, or whatever happened, and then they signed to a major. So basically everything that was released in the '90s was major.
Yeah. Which one do you remember what the major was?
I don't remember off the top of my head now.
Gotcha. I was curious because I'm always curious to see how that worked out.
Yeah.
Like I've shown you Skinny Puppy.
Oh yeah.
And Skinny Puppy was on Network Records through the middle '90s, and then they went to Capitol Records in 1992, and they gave them a bunch of money. They're like getting huge. Knife Snails just got huge, so they were like, "We're gonna throw a bunch of money into Skinny Puppy," and they were fucking on heroin and shit, and it led to these year-long.
What could go wrong?
Yeah, and they were in Huntington Beach, and they just got slammed with a bunch of money, and so you know what I mean, they were just kind of like. It was the wrong time for them, unfortunately, and then they tried to squeak out an album, and Kevin Key had to go in there and sort of take his inspiration and sort of finish the album because they only really had one album, and then they ended up going to American Records, which a lot of people know American Records, which is kind of like Roadrunner.
They probably got fucked over because
yeah, so they couldn't get out there, and it led to them breaking up.
Danzig was on American Records for a lot of his early stuff, and they fucked that band hard. Like, they fucked them over hard.
So I was wondering, sometimes I get curious about what happens to bands around the early '90s because a lot of those bands, they go through a couple albums and then they go to a big album, a big label, and there's issues. There's, you know, them trying to get a hit from them pushing them into a studio, you know, and, you know, just things happen and it doesn't work out. And some do and some don't, but it's always interesting.
As far as I know, Dinosaur Jr. is still producing music. I'm not sure what record label they're on. I mean, I'm not like super, super huge into the band. I just really like their first three albums. So, I mean, I couldn't really tell you what they're up to these days, but as far as I know, they're still producing music.
Yeah.
If that's on an indie or a major, I couldn't tell you.
I've definitely heard them touring, or at least playing a show in the last at least 6 months to a year.
They're still active, for sure, yeah.
Interesting. Cool. What else you got?
Leprosy by Death. This might be a little hard to show because it's holographic. There you go.
Oh, that's such a cool cover. You want to show it closer?
Yeah, sure.
Or actually, I'll do it for you.
So this is, I really love this band. They were basically like the godfathers of death metal, depending on who you ask. I mean, people say Possessed started it, but I don't necessarily agree with that.
What year is that you're talking about?
This album, I believe, was 87.
Wow, and it had that cover on it? 87? Yeah. Wow, that's awesome.
Their debut was 85. So
that's cool artwork for 87.
Yeah. So, yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of debate on whether or not the band Possessed or this band were like the godfathers of death metal, but I would say this band was way more influential than Possessed. And I got this mainly because actually a couple days ago I had an opportunity to buy a sealed Combat Records original press, but the guy wanted like $275 for it. And as cool as that would be, this was $23. And honestly, this one's remastered. It probably sounds better. Got the cool holographic cover.
Yeah, can't beat that.
These guys are really good. They're like, basically they pioneered death metal. Like the whole reason it's called death metal is because like everyone copies this sound. Yeah, death sound. So it's very heavy, very abrasive. It's like Megadeth on fucking steroids, basically. So,
really?
Yeah.
Is it like? Oh, you'll have to play it sometime for me.
Yeah, for sure. I have a bunch of their stuff. I just need their debut and one other album actually, and I'll have their whole discography on vinyl. So
cool, nice. Yeah. You got one last one, huh? Or two?
I got. What do I got here? Oh, I got one left. That's the typo negative. This is Sunny Day Real Estate's debut. They're kind of like emo, screamo, like the actual genre screamo, though. Some people call this genre scrams as well because it's like the real screamo, I guess you could say. And people use screamo as like a very, very vague, like broad term. Like they'll call anything metal screamo, but like there actually was a genre called screamo.
Yeah, I remember that.
It's basically like emo, which is like an offshoot of hardcore. It's very similar to like the DC hardcore from the
Is
80s.
Screamo like 2001 to 2005?
It's like
Period?
mid 90s on, yeah.
Oh, is that far back?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And this was like a groundbreaking album in the genre. I actually only recently got into this genre through my coworker. Actually, he turned me on to them, and it's really good. It's basically melodic hardcore with like some screaming, like not like death metal growling or anything like that, but like a little more aggressive than hardcore punk, like actual screaming and stuff like that. And it's a really interesting dynamic, like the very melodic guitars and just hearing like angry screaming over it. Like it's a really interesting genre, like an interesting dynamic because it's very melodic, but they're also really pissed. So it's like
What are they singing about?
I don't know. I couldn't tell you. I'm not that familiar with this album. I just listened to it because my coworker suggested it and saw it, and I did enjoy it when I listened to it, so I figured I'd pick it up.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
So out of your 5 picks, that was the one that's kind of the newest that you know least about, probably?
Yeah, I couldn't tell you too much about this one. I just know.
But of the 5, that's the least.
Yeah, this is the one I'm the least knowledgeable on for sure.
So was that, if you had to put one back of those 5, which one would you have to put back?
Probably this one.
Probably that one. So it's kind of on the borderline when you're getting into it.
Well, I was gonna get Gel's newest EP too. They're like that hardcore female fronted band I was telling you about.
You were just telling me and then I had it there.
I was gonna get it, and then I saw this, and I like this a little more than I like Gel. I mean, Gel's a great band, don't get me wrong, but that was like a 5-song EP, and this is like a double LP with like extra songs, and it was mastered from the original master tapes and stuff like that. So
Looks like a nice package.
oh, definitely. Yeah.
Is it double or triple? It's double.
It's double.
It's gatefold? Gatefold too?
Mhm.
Cool.
They seal them tight as hell these days, so you'd be surprised. But yeah, it's gatefold.
Yeah, I gotta. I guess I'll show a record I got this week. This is James Bernard's Atmospherics, which this is actually a 4x12. Came out on. I just forget. Past. I can't remember the name. Past Future. I can't remember the label name. Blanking on it. Anyways, but they did a really good job with this. Past Future something. God, that's gonna kill me that I can't remember that. Past something. Past Future something. Anyways, this album came out in 1994 on Rising High Records. James Bernard's a good friend. He's an engineer and he used to work for. Was it Pro Tools or did he work for Digidesign? Or maybe it was Samsung. Maybe he used to work for Samsung Electronics. Can't remember what it was. But yeah, he was involved in some of the early. Well, he's very knowledgeable about equipment. I think he might have worked at one of the one of the keyboard manufacturers as well. Like I don't know if it was Chaos. No. Maybe it was Yamaha. But yeah, anyways, he makes really good ambient techno. And this is one of his classic records, which just turned 30 years old last year. But it just came out. They decided to remaster the first 2, for the full album on the first 2 records, and then BV Dub did his own version of every track on record 3 and 4. And of course, he's a ambient dub techno producer from San Francisco. So he did his own versions on this. So this should be pretty exciting. I have the original record on vinyl and CD, but it's hard not to pick that up. This was around $59. There's only 200 copies, so I'm sure this one's going to go for $300-400 pretty soon if they don't make more copies. Because I was really surprised they only had 200 copies. I've been wanting to reissue something from James Bernard for a while, and when I saw that they only did the cassettes and the CDs, I called them up and I was like, can I do it on vinyl? And he's like, oh, well, they're going to do it on vinyl too. I was like, okay, well, give me the site, and then I ordered one. But yes, that's the only new record I got this week. But yeah, I'm gonna listen to Typo Negative for the first time. October Lust.
October Rust.
October
it might
Rust.
as well be October Lust.
October Rust. And so you want to set it up? What were your thoughts on?
Yeah, I'll give it a little intro.
Yeah.
I really like Typo Negative. I'm a big fan of Carnivore too, which was Peter Steele's prior band. Before forming Typo Negative, and I just really like their aggressiveness, and like the Carnivore albums are fucking goofy. Like the lyrics are ridiculous. They're all jokes for anyone who looks this up, but
Mhm.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm just a big fan of like Peter Steele's work because he wrote all the songs for Typo Negative and all the songs for Carnivore, and it's just really doomy Black Sabbathy, but like also like almost crossover thrash where there's like some hardcore punk thrown in there. But then they got really like gothy, like their third or so album with Typo Negative, and
This is their third or fourth album
I
here?
believe this is their third. No, technically, I think it's their fourth.
Okay.
If you count Origin of the Feces, which is like a fake live album. It's just a re-recording of all the first Slow Deep and Hard tracks. But anyways, I digress. I don't know. I just kind of wanted to see your thoughts on this because I know you really like the 80s goth bands and stuff along those lines. And this is kind of like at least what I would consider 90s goth stuff. So
Cool.
just wanted to see what you think of it essentially.
Yeah, which is right in line. We're gonna after this, we're gonna both hear a new album for the first time. It's an album that I've been wanting to play for a while, and when I started this channel, I've been meaning to get to it, so I might as well do it. We're gonna do the Fields of Nephilism. Nephilism. I think they're
Something.
Nephilism.
I don't know.
I don't even know. I don't know. I've never heard actually somebody say it, but I've always heard their name when people talk about like goth music, and we're going to check out their first album from 1987, which I'm trying to remember the name. Actually, I don't want the camera to stop, so I don't want to do that. But I think it's called like Dawn something, Dawn something or whatever. But yeah, cool. But yeah, I haven't checked. I've never heard this album, so I'm interested to hear it. This will be the first album that Steve's recommending me that I'll listen to and actually rate with him. So I'll go first and do the rating. So it'll be fun. That way, I'm not. Uh,
I don't want to bias your answers.
yeah, I don't want him to, or he doesn't want me to impose his opinion on mine, and then I might feel obligated to score mine higher.
I want to see
Just
your
to be
raw,
nice.
your raw, unbridled thoughts.
Yeah, so that should be interesting. So I think there's 11 tracks in total. There's a couple interludes in there, but for the most part, there's 11 full tracks. So we'll rate those 11 tracks each, and then I'll do an overview score, and then Steve will take over from there. We'll do that. So all right, we're gonna check out the album now.
All right, welcome back, guys. So Tim, what do you think?
It's interesting because I like the atmosphere, and I like we talked about. I like the combination of the bass and the guitar is like making like an atmospheric, sound. I just kind of wished like it had maybe a little bit more melody and a little bit more harmonies, maybe. Um, Nothing really like grabbed me as far as like I felt like this was an excellent track like that. Like I think I got one song that was very good out of all of them, but I thought it was very consistent album, and like I agree with you, the album got better, especially like the last probably four songs.
Yeah.
Specifically, I felt were better. Um, Let me look at my notes here as well because I don't want to forget anything. But I like his voice in the higher range, and it sounds more normal, and I guess maybe more like a hard rock band. Like he kind of sings like that, and then sometimes when he switches to the low voice in the same song, like there was a couple in the early album where it wasn't really bad, but it was a little off putting when he does both voices in the same song. I don't think that's a negative thing. It was just kind of like I kind of liked when he stays in one tone through the song, but when he changes it, it kind of feels a little weird. But I think the drummer is interesting. We talked about the drummer a little bit. It seems like he's not really playing aggressive, and maybe that's because it's more of a melodic, um, more of a chill out. Wouldn't say chill out, but more of a down tempo hard rock
It's
album.
one of their calmer albums. Yeah.
Yeah, more calmer. So it almost seems like the drummer is not really playing very aggressive, and he's almost playing behind the rhythm a little bit. Um, so that was interesting. But I think that works because if it was more on beat, it'd be a little bit more driving. So I get that. I guess what I was looking for was a little bit more, maybe melodics, a little bit more atmosphere. Maybe some keyboards, would have been ideal. I like melody. I like keyboards. Um, there was a couple songs that I maybe didn't like so much, like the Red Water, the Christmas Morning. I thought was a little strange with the Christmas feel and like the sort of wasn't really jingle bells, but the sort of bells and chimes where it kind of sounded like a Christmas song. It was, I don't know, it was a little strange. I really like, my favorite probably three tracks were Wolf Moon, Love You to Death, and Burnt Flowers Fallen. Those are my favorite three tracks, and I feel like those seem to be the most successful consistently through. I do like when there's like breaks in the songs and then it builds back up, and I think everything's pretty strong in it. I don't feel like anything's like subpar. There's only one track that I felt was below a five, which is pretty good. So there wasn't any songs that I disliked at all. There wasn't any there was only one song that I thought was like okay. So I definitely thought it was above average, and I scored the album a good score for 60 out of 100. But as far as my individual scores, I got Love You to Death. I really like the piano on that one. The chorus is nice, good harmonies. He stays in the sweet spot for a good amount of time, and I like that, especially because if it works and he stays in that zone and they kind of stay in that kind of zone, I really like it. Sometimes I don't like a lot of changes and stuff and up and down stuff. If it's in a sweet spot, I like it. And there's a lot of that album where it's got good pacing, where it stays in the sweet spot for the most part. So I like that. And I really like the higher guitar sounds in this specific song and some of the other ones. I gave Love You to Death 6.5 stars. I gave track two, Be My Druidess, 6.25 stars. This one was one of the songs I wasn't sure if I liked the differences in his voice, where the higher pitched and the low pitched. Green Man was pretty good. It was 5.25 stars. Red Water, The Christmas Morning was my least favorite on the album, 6.5. Then it gets pretty consistent. My Girlfriend's Girlfriend, I gave a 6. Die With Me, I gave a 6 out of 10. Burnt Flowers Fallen. I thought this was the most successful guitar riff yet. The ups and downs are good. This one was close to very good. It was 6.75 stars. And then track number 8, Appraised and Bacchus, 6.5 stars on that one. That was above average on this album too. Cinnamon Girl was catchy. I could see that why that was a single. I did notice that was a single, and also Love You to Death was a single. And there was a third single on there too. I'm trying to remember what it was. It might have been Burnt Flowers Fallen, but Cinnamon Girl was catchy. But it just didn't really. I don't know if catchy's their thing on this album. I don't know. I feel like I wanted more catchy stuff, but I don't think it would have been right for this album. So Cinnamon Girl maybe is the most catchy on there besides Love You to Death, but this one's maybe a little bit too poppy. But I still thought it was above average on this. It's above average on the rest of the album, so 6.25 stars that one. And then my favorite track is track number 10, Wolf Moon, which I gave a 7 stars. I thought that was probably the most. The harmony was the best. I thought they kind of pulled out the harmony, and the way he sang it and everything was just really smooth. And that one kind of hit home on as far as like the best kind of impactful song they really kind of nailed, where I felt like it became kind of epic at the end, and you kind of remembered the song and you wanted to sing it and stuff like that. I always kind of look for that kind of that, not I would say deeper meaning, but sort of like it's kind of becomes like an anthem, and it becomes kind of catchy, and they kind of. I like when bands that are very atmospheric, whether they be gothy, a lot of the appeal of like goth music and maybe even heavy metal is is sort of the history of the style and sort of making it epic and making it dramatic. I mean, the history of rock music is I think the big thing that made alternative rock and regular rock and roll into different styles of rock music was operas, right? Like the Who and like Tommy from the Who, and bands like Queen and David Bowie and Kiss and whoever. They kind of made it like a show, and so you kind of want it to kind of go to that another level where it's almost like, if it's goth, it's almost like you almost want it to go to like a really powerful level to where it sounds sort of like a operatic opera sort of goth sound. You know what I mean? Like you really wanted him to take it there, and I felt like Wolf Moon did the best in that, especially with the harmony and melody. Track number 11, Haunted. It was okay. I mean, I give it 5.25 stars. I thought it was pretty good, but I think it probably just went on a little bit long. Like we agreed upon, maybe the last 3 minutes or so went on a little long. So yeah, I gave the overall album 66.25 stars divided by 11, so it was roughly a 6.02. So right at a 60. I probably don't have the experience. Well, I obviously don't have the experience in this album, and maybe even this genre of sort of gothic metal to even kind of feel like I can put it in context historically. So I don't feel like I can give it any extra points or any extra critique. It's just kind of hearing it for the first time. So I don't really have too much to say as far as where it sits in the history of gothic metal, or I'm sure Steve will be able to tell. Steve will be able to tell a lot more about that. But I thought it was a good album. I do think knowing the history of or the background of Peter Steele, from Steve, and also I had a previous friend that we kind of talked about the history because he knew him pretty well, or his history, and his personality seems a little. I don't know if it's one that could be really. I don't know. It's just like some people like don't support somebody because they don't believe in something or they don't like their personality or what they write about or what they say. And there's definitely some questionable lyrics and maybe a little bit too much. I wouldn't say sappiness, with some of the lyrics and too much about love and stuff like that. I mean, it doesn't really kind of really get to me with like any kind of lyrics or something. But you do get this kind of feeling like I don't know. He's kind of a creep. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, you sort of combine like, he seems super macho. He seems really into himself.
He did it for the ladies,
He
man.
did it for the ladies. Like, there's a little bit of like, he's the type of guy that you just like. I don't know. Like, if I kind of saw him live, I'd probably be laugh, and he would probably be pissed off I was laughing at him. But there is a little bit of a corniest level because he's so like I don't know, just very into himself, and it's kind of all you can do. If somebody is really into themselves is kind of laugh. Otherwise, it just becomes really confrontational. And there's a little bit of me that kind of wants to laugh at some of his deeper lyrics or his romantic lyrics, and just kind of knowing a little bit about his story and then the ironic way he died and stuff. Just kind of like and all kind of. Plus, he was in Playgirl, and I mean, just kind of like I don't know. It just kind of makes you. I don't know if I can not like root for him or listen to him because of that. It doesn't put me off in that respect at all because not too many singers do. Even if they're like somebody that's like we were talking about, even if somebody's like racist or it's I can still kind of put that aside and still try to listen to the art and respect it for what it is. Hopefully whatever somebody perfections they may have or somebody's opinion of them or if it's something like as bad as racism hopefully they get it fixed and hopefully they get over that but so I don't cancel somebody like a lot of cancel culture if somebody's racist. I'll still try to be friends with them and even overlook their faults. Like I'm sure I have faults and everybody has faults, so if everybody didn't sort of I guess sort of have more understanding of people's uh, opinions and where they come from, the world would be a better place. I feel like so. I don't not dislike somebody's art because for whatever reason, and I certainly don't dislike his art because of that. But I do have a little feeling like he's a little bit maybe neurotic and creepy, and just I don't know. But he is kind of like a jilted lover in a way. He is kind of like a tragic kind of love story in a way. It's I guess you could kind of look at it like that too. As much as he's into girls hurt him, and everybody, you know what I mean. So it's just like he is kind of a tragic story in some ways, and maybe that's what his sort of character sort of represents in an iconic way because he's so physically strong and big and like an imposing figure. It is kind of ironic that maybe he is kind of very soft inside and sort of has that. But it's tough because I mean that's kind of the thing that you're putting on that persona of being you're into heavy metal and you're supposed to be you know guy and like that, and then maybe he's sort of sensitive and stuff like that
Maybe it
too.
was all a charade. Maybe he
Yeah.
actually was just like a real soft guy.
Yeah, so there's a lot of ironic things kind of in his whole personality of his music. But the only reason why I wanted to explain that is just because A, I had a couple beers, and then
Yeah, the album was long enough.
and the album was pretty long, and I felt like I was almost wooed by him. But um, no, I'm joking. But just kind of like I don't know. You just kind of sometimes you hear different music, and this isn't normally my style of music, like gothic metal, but I find it interesting because he has such an interesting personality. And there is a lot of ironic and kind of in there for me. But yeah, we're gonna go on to Steve to see what he thinks because I've talked too long.
All right, so I wanted you to go first because I wanted to hear, like your unfiltered opinion before I gave mine.
Yeah.
Because I'm a little more familiar with this genre and this style and like typo negative in general, I guess you could say. So I gave this album overall an 88. My score came out to an 82 overall, and then I added 5 points just because it's pretty much a classic. Like as far as like weird, creepy goth metal, like if like even typo negative, like it's one of their classics. Like you mentioned typo negative, this is probably the first album someone will mention. Like it was like their I don't want to say magnum opus, but it was definitely like their most widely received album. Uh, it's kind of cheesy in ways, like you were saying. Like I don't really like some of the lyrics; they're a little like, "All right, guy." But the music is just really good, and I usually show this album to people just to start them off because depending on the feedback you give me from this album, I can determine what you would like what else you would like in their catalog, I guess you could say.
Yeah, that's cool.
Because there's a little bit of everything on this album as far as like their style and stuff like that. The album's it starts the first song, "Love You to Death." It starts off pretty strong. The first two tracks I like a lot. The lyrics are cheesy as hell. They're ridiculously cheesy, but they're typo negative. They get a pass. I don't care. Like
Yeah, I'm not too worried about lyrics.
they can say whatever the hell they want because the music's great.
Yeah.
So I'd say my top three songs were probably "In Praise of Bacchus." I really like that one. "My Girlfriend's Girlfriend" and "Wolf Moon." I also really like "Wolf Moon."
Yeah, I like that one.
Those are probably my three favorite tracks. I really like how throughout the entire album they kind of mix like Black Sabbath inspired riffs with like I guess what you would consider like 90s goth guitar, like that weird like clean channel, like reverb, like dreamy sounding guitar almost. But then they have the distorted bass beneath it.
Yeah, you showed me that. You pointed that out. I did like that. It almost sounds like that creates the atmosphere.
Yeah, like this album specifically, like the bass isn't clean like it normally is. Like there's distortion on it, so behind the guitar, it creates like layers, like you were describing. Like
Yeah, it's almost like not on bar because there's so much atmosphere and so much. It's not like it starts with the beat and you hear a new bass line. It's almost like the reverberance echo of the previous guitar. I mean, of that whole sound is flowing through the
yeah.
whole thing.
Well, the whole thing with any music that Peter Steele wrote was he was the bassist, but he wrote like all the songs, all the melodies, all of that type of thing. So like most of any music he was involved
I didn't know he
with,
did the bass.
Yeah, he's the bassist and the singer.
Oh, okay. Well, that's cool because it seems like it went well with his voice. So it makes sense if he's doing it to his voice, like to the breaks and stuff like that.
Yes, but I guess where I was going with that is like song structure wise, almost everything that he has been involved with is kind of focused around his bass lines. And he has a very unique way of playing the bass. It's not really like a rhythmic instrument for him. Like I was saying to you earlier, it's almost like he is a lead guitarist that plays bass. Like it's very forward in the song, and it's like most of the melody comes from his bass lines. it's very interesting stuff. I really like this band. They're like one of my top 5 favorite bands. Like you were saying, his personalities. But would I have gotten along with him? I don't know. He might be weird. I don't know. I really like his music though.
Yeah, I don't think I would have gone along with him.
I don't know. I might not.
I think around me, he would probably think like he would. I think around other guys, other big guys, like I'm a pretty big guy, like he would probably try to be a little macho, and I'd probably be like, this dude's blowing smoke up my ass.
I mean,
You know,
he
like
could
trying
be a
to be
really,
like,
really cool, humble dude, though. You know.
yeah, it could be,
You know?
it could be. I just
I
kind
mean,
of get the feeling like, you know, from some of the lyrics that you wrote, like other songs, and
I feel like a lot of it was performative, though, and like he
Yeah.
really liked to antagonize people with his lyrics. Like Carnivore, for example, his previous band, like almost every single song they wrote was just to piss people off.
you know, just for shits and giggles, we should look into like what people say about him after he passed away, and just kind of see like, oh yeah, he was really misunderstood. He was really a nice guy, and you know, he came over and my mom was having a difficult time, and he came over and see how it was. You know, I wonder if there's anybody that says anything like that about him, or if it's just jilted lovers.
I don't know. I know that a good portion of his lyrical content was due to, like you were saying, his failed love endeavors and you know his anger with that, and he had some very very strong political views that also came through in his music. And you know, it doesn't matter to me what side you're on. Like you know, like you were saying, I'll accept people for who they are, but like he definitely had some pretty strong political views.
Yeah. I remind me to ask you a question at the end once you're done. I got a question for you.
All right. So I'm just gonna go through the scores that I gave the songs. "Love You to Death" I gave it an 8.5. It's got a real cool bass tone. The lyrics are extremely cheesy, but who cares? It's typo negative. I mean, the lyrics are gonna be cheesy. The "Be My Druidess" I gave an 8.5. It's got a killer, unique bass tone, very neat guitar work, absolutely ridiculous lyrics, but it's typo negative. I give them a pass. Like whatever.
It's like the third time you said that. You say that on every song, probably. Huh?
Not every. The Green Man, it's not bad, but it's like kind of filler-ish. I gave it like a 6. Like it's not a bad song, but it definitely feels like a filler track. Like
I felt like too. It was a little bit down from the first.
There's
two.
just nothing that stuck out to me. It feels like a placeholder.
Yeah.
The Red Water Christmas Morning, it's not a bad track. It's just kind of weak. Like it's still good by typo negative standards, but I gave it like a 4.5. My girlfriend's.
So we gave it the same score.
Yeah, my review of that song is just.
So how can the whole album get an 88 if you gave that one a 4?
Just wait.
All right.
My
Well, that's right. You did give it an 82. I got you.
I added 5 points because
6.
it's like
6. 82 to 88. 6.
Close enough. Mental math was never my forte. Anyways, I promise I'm not an idiot.
No, I was just curious because I forgot you bumped it up because of your overall thoughts, which you'll explain.
Yeah, I'll get to that and stuff. My Girlfriend's Girlfriend, very strong outlier on the album. It's extremely catchy. It's poppy, but not in an overbearing way. I gave it a 9.5. I just really enjoy that song.
Wow.
It's like when I show people that band, sometimes that's my go-to song. It's a good song.
I'll have to play it again. We were kind of talking through a lot of that song or two around then. I'll have to play that one again and see if I liked it any better.
It's good, poppy, bouncy, typo negative. It's a good song. And Die With Me, it's kind of ballady. It's a good song overall. It's a cool mix of like Sabbathy riffs and like that signature typo negative sound that they developed over the years that kind of came to fruition on this album. It's not like incredible, but I gave it a 7.75. Burnt Flowers, it's very bouncy. It has like a very 90s goth sound. I don't really have too much to say about it, but I do like the song. I give it a 7.75 as well. In Praise of Bacchus, I put this is probably the best song on the album. Incredible bass and guitar work. It's got very Sabbathy riffs again, but with that typo negative signature twist. Really cool tremolo usage on the higher registers and the guitars. Like he just goes to town on the whammy bar on his guitar there for a little bit.
Tremolo?
The second half of the song's like real
tremolo. It's nice. It's good. I gotta Okay. That's like a?
It's the whammy bar. It's like it's the pitch shifter on the guitar, basically.
Yeah, but what's tremolo about it? Is that what the piece is called?
Yeah.
It's not called a whammy bar.
Well, it's called a whammy bar, tremolo.
Oh, I've never heard it called tremolo.
Yeah, it's like the pitch shifter when it changes the tension on the strings, which changes the pitch.
Yeah, it's almost like you ever seen somebody play keyboard and they play.
It's exactly like that, but guitar.
Yeah. I just never heard it called tremolo. But when you say tremolo, it's like a. Oh, it almost sounds like some kind of note or something. Like this is a tremolo. This is
It's well, I guess the proper name for it is tremolo system. But you can call it a whammy bar, a floating bridge.
Yeah.
Like it's just guitar terms.
I'm from the keyboard land. I don't know tremolo.
I'm a guitarist, so.
There goes. There goes.
So, anyways,
I learned something new today.
Shit, which one was I on?
I think you're on the V one. Flowers, weren't you?
Yes.
Flowers.
Yes. So, the next song is In Praise of Bacchus. I put this as probably the best song on the album. Oh, you know what? I already reviewed this. Never mind. Ignore me. I've had a couple beers. It's fine.
What was your rating on that one?
10.
You gave it a straight 10?
I gave it a straight 10. I fucking love that song.
Dang.
That song's great.
Awesome.
Like, I really like that song. That's like one of my go-to type of negative songs.
Oh, that's cool.
Like, out of their entire catalog, that song's great.
I like how you're standing by your 10's a strong score. I mean, that's the top.
It's a classic. It's really good.
I think I've given maybe like 15 5s when I had the 1 through 5. I've yet to give one now that's a 10 since I switched to 10, but I just switched to 10 like last week.
Well, In Praise of Bacchus, it gets 10.
That's nice. That's awesome.
Cinnamon Girl, I put very, very good riffs, mixed with like a dreamy, clean guitar tone. It's just more of the same on the album. Just like a little bit of heavy stuff mixed in with like their gothier, like more artistic work, I guess you could say. Like this is like I said to you earlier. This is like I guess you can consider it their most artsy fartsy album, like where they tried to make a serious album. Like some of their other stuff's just clearly like satire and like fuck you, we're a metal band, that type of thing.
Because they already kind of did that in Carnivore, right? So
but early Typo Negative was just much of the same. Typo Negative's first entire album was intended to be a Carnivore album. So
okay.
yeah, like every single track on there was intended for Carnivore. They just started this band and was like, well, I already have all this shit written. Might as well release it.
Are they different members?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All of them.
Yeah, Carnivore was a 3-piece. The only member that moved between Carnivore and Typo Negative was Peter.
Gotcha.
So
And he's the lead singer of both. So.
He's the lead singer and the bassist of both.
Okay.
So
Gotcha.
he wrote all the songs for both too.
Oh.
Wolf Moon. I also gave this one a 10. I put in my notes here. I lied. This is the best song on the album. Enough said. That's
all you have to say on that.
That's all I have to say is it's the best song on the album. It's great. Listen to it.
I think that was my favorite one too. I really like that one.
I haven't heard this album in a couple months. Like I'm not gonna lie, I kind of forgot about some of the songs.
I can see this album growing on me for sure.
That's what happened to me at first too. When I first heard it, I wasn't the biggest fan, and then I gave it a couple more listens, and I really liked it.
Yeah, I just feel like nothing's really like. I don't know. Maybe I was just feeling like something would kind of grab me a little bit more immediately.
This album grows on you. It's one of the albums. It's the same exact thing happened to me. At first, I was like, yeah, and then I like gave it a couple more listens, and I was like, this is really good. I like this.
Yeah.
And then Haunted for the last one. It's a very dark sounding song. It's got a bunch of odes to Sabbath riffs again. The guitar is very reminiscent of Black Sabbath. Like this one specifically sounds like the title track off Sabbath's debut, like Black Sabbath with the weird like low tuned like droning guitar sound, like very similar. It kind of drags the second half of the song. I'm not the biggest fan of. Like I don't know. It's just 11 minutes is really friggin' long for a song. Like I said to you, it's like after 6 minutes, man. Unless the song's incredible, just pack it up, man. We get it. But I gave that one a 4.
A 4? That's 2 4s. And he gave it an 82. That's 20. That's 17% of the album. There's 11 tracks. 16%.
I might have did the math
16,
wrong.
17?
I just added up all my scores.
No. It's, because you gave a few 10s, so that makes up for the 4.
That's true.
That brings it to an 8 for sure if you you named almost 3 10s. So
But yeah, I had like a 9.5 in there too. Two
Yeah.
10s, a 9.5, a couple 8.5s. So,
yeah, that helps. Nice.
but my overall score was an 82. I gave it 5 more points just because this is pretty much like a classic as far as this band and just this genre in general. If you talk about gothic metal, Typo Negative is one of the first bands that gets brought up. This is one of their most popular albums, if not their most popular album, and it's a classic as far as like the genre. And I, like you were saying, I didn't really like it at first. I liked their other
Well,
material.
I think it's
a lot
good.
more.
I said it's good, but nothing really like makes me like.
That's exactly the reaction I had to. Like,
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, it's not bad. It's okay. This is, cool, whatever. And then I listened to it a couple more times, and, like, it just really started to grow on me. And I guess, other people must have had the same opinion, because this is one of their most popular albums.
Mm.
So I'd say it's just, that score, I added that extra 5 points because I really like the production. I really like the bass tone. Like, you can tell that they had a high production budget for this because everything's recorded really well. They kind of went for a drum machine type sound almost with the drums. Like you were saying, it's very weak and, like, behind, and they added a lot of compression on the drums to make it sound like more like a drum machine than an actual drum set, which I don't really like that, but it works for this album.
Mm.
I generally hate when people put compression of any kind on any live instrument. It's just, I'd rather hear the organic timbre of the instrument. I think it sounds like crap most of the time.
Mm.
But it really works for this album. And just, I don't know, I like it. A lot of the songs are memorable. A lot of them aren't so memorable and are kind of but as a package, it works.
Question for you.
What's up?
So, as I'm just curious, like if you take out what you know about like the lead singer, like what do you think is goth about that album?
Well, I am, like you said, we have a pretty decent age gap. So I think me growing up in like the 2000s, my idea of goth is very different than what it was in the 80s. I didn't even know that those bands existed until I was in like my mid to late 20s.
Yeah, but I mean just the music, like what
The clean guitars with the reverb, the like dreamy sounding keyboards, it's just their whole imagery.
there's no keyboards in here, right?
Oh, there's tons of keyboard.
I guess maybe they don't play it like a melody per se. I mean, I get some of the. I didn't hear a lot of keys playing, to be honest with you.
It's part of the atmosphere. It's kind of
Yeah.
like, it's not like up front in your face.
Yeah,
Like there's tons of keyboards on this album, but
maybe I just kind of missed it with the atmosphere.
it's one of those albums you got to listen to a couple times to fully digest. Definitely.
Because there was no keyboard solo. There was no.
Oh, not at all. No.
Yeah, there was no key. There's no like, okay, well, we're just gonna let the keyboard play.
No, not at all.
Yeah,
It's part of the atmosphere, part of the melodies. Like some of the
Yeah.
stuff that like you may have thought was guitar was like keyboards.
Probably.
A lot of the horns and string sounds are actually keyboard.
Gotcha.
Things of that nature. It's just it's very. They don't really use the keyboards in a way where they're jumping out at you. It's just part of the atmosphere and the melodies usually.
Mhm.
So,
Gotcha.
but yeah, I guess to fully answer your question, just they're this is what I would consider goth in a way. Like I know it's not really like 80s goth, but it's like it kind of built on it. And like as far as metal, this like just the atmosphere, the way that it's like dark and creepy sounding,
It is moody for sure. Moody.
it builds an atmosphere where a lot of metal doesn't do that. A lot of metal is like, here's a guitar riff, here's some drums, fuck you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, no. I was wondering because I was curious what your thoughts are on why it was goth, but also the bigger picture. I was trying to think of for an answer for myself, like how much do like the lyrics and the words or I guess it's both the same, but the lyrics kind of add to the sort of romanticism or the goth about it, and I was trying to see if kind of ask myself if that how much that lends to the overall goth sound. Is it because he sings in a baritone voice and he sings about love and there's a little bit of atmosphere that makes it goth? Because if you took these lyrics and you put them in anything else, like a pop song, that doesn't make it goth. So it's not the lyrics.
It's
I guess it's just really his voice.
I'd
And
say
then
it's more the
and the
atmosphere
moody.
and the composition of the songs, and like the lyrics. You could remove the lyrics, and I'd still say, yeah, this sounds gothy.
Yeah, but when he sings in the low end voice, I mean, certainly it sounds like
Yeah.
Like he was a monster or something, like a gothic
Yeah.
monster or something. You know what I mean? He's got the. Ooh,
Oh, Peter Steele.
I'm Peter Steele.
I'm upset because my relationship didn't work out. I mean, I don't blame the guy, but like, god damn, dude, get over it. You wrote like 4 albums about it.
So he was pretty about that, huh?
Yeah.
Cool. Well, yeah. So I gave the album a 60. Thanks for letting me hear it. I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. Like you said, I think it could grow on me. I don't know if I could ever give it maybe a 7 or higher, like being very good, but I feel like it could get close there after time. Um, yeah, it does. It is kind of long. That's a long album. Doesn't really get to me.
It's a lot to
like
digest all at once, though.
it. It is.
Yeah.
It is, but it's not like. Sometimes I find the ones that are like 13, 14 tracks and they're all 3 minutes. I find those really hard to digest
Oh, yeah.
because they move so quickly.
That's true.
When the songs are long, I feel like I kind of get to them, but I'm like, I want to know the changes and like, okay, if I did like something, okay, how did it get there? Did I miss that? But when songs are so quick, it's kind of like, oh, they're over. Oh, I got to play it again because I feel like I've missed something.
Well, I listened to Power Violence and Grindcore and like Despise You, West Side Horizons, for example. I mean, there's like 51 tracks on that album, and the longest song is a minute and a half long. So
It's crazy. It's crazy. Well, cool. Well, that was our review on Typo Negative's album from 1996.
I believe it's 96, either
Yeah.
95 or 96.
Yeah.
I could be wrong. Don't quote me on that.
October Rust was the name of the album. So thanks for listening, and appreciate it. Take care. Thanks, Steve.
Went